conservative,
Christian, mother, wife,
Air Force veteran,
gun rights advocate.
This is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Welcome. Hello, friends. It's good to be with you this evening. And it's also good for me to report that radical pro-Hamas squad member Cori Bush has just been defeated by Wesley Bell in Missouri Congressional District 1. Now, I live in Mo 2, so this is not consequential for me directly, but it is consequential because of what this means for Missourians and what it means for Congress. Now, Wesley Bell is a radical Democrat, but he's also pro-Israel. So he could be there with my blessing, not because I agree with his policies, but because being against Israel, being an anti-Semitic individual makes you, in my opinion, unworthy of being an elected congressional member. So goodbye to Cori Bush. I hope she has better success in the private sector. Speaking of electoral results, consequential out of California, we need fresh news. Coming to us tonight, again, Jessica Milan Patterson, chairwoman of the California Republican Party. The website there is cagop.org. Jessica, thanks for coming on.
Stacey, it is always great to be with you and your listeners.
We love it when you come on because you bring us all of the deep dive info that we need. And on a primary night, it's primary night in Missouri. My husband and I went and voted just after lunch today. It was not difficult, less than 10 minutes in and out, because primary elections usually have low turnout. But they're very consequential because the candidates that you'll get to vote for are decided during these elections. And you are actually talking about something that is going to happen in November, and that is the face-off between President Trump and Kamala Harris for the presidency. Talk to us about California and what she's meant to your state.
Well, it's really interesting to watch, and you're so correct in saying how important and consequential these primaries are. And the reason why they're so consequential is because, countrywide, we have about 35 congressional districts that are going to be in play. Those were all decided by less than 5 points in the last election cycle, right? So they can be truly targets, Democrat or Republican side. And so a lot of these other seats are decided in the primary. Whoever wins that primary is very likely going to win that general election if it's a strong Republican or a strong Democrat seat. So these primaries are incredibly important. And what the Democrats have done on the presidential race is just absolutely abhorrent to watch. They have taken democracy out of the hands of the people because they didn't like who their choice was, and they knew they were going to lose in November if President Biden was at the top of the ticket. But I can tell you as a Californian, Kamala Harris has been an absolute nightmare. When it comes to her leadership, whether it is on public safety, on health care, on energy, all of these issues, she has been an absolute radical. And California should be the example to the entire country of a proposition that's going on the ballot in November. It's called Proposition 36. And what it is a public safety cleanup proposition. Because 10 years ago, when Kamala Harris was our Attorney General, she wrote the title and summary for propositions that decriminalized theft up to $950 and then released felons into our communities. And guess what the repercussions of that 10 years later is? We've got the highest crime in the entire nation. Well, violent crimes are going down across the country. They're going up in California. Smash and grabs have become an absolute everyday occurrence, so much so that many stores, big chains and mom and pop shops are closing their doors for good. And these are the repercussions of someone like Kamala Harris and her radical anti-police, pro-criminal policies that we have had here in California.
Oh, gosh. And so, when you talk about those stores closing up, I think we're still reeling, honestly, aren't we reeling from the store closures that we've seen post-COVID? We haven't really recovered from that. And so to hear that we have other stores that are closing, that things are going badly for these businesses. And in California, where, you have huge population, you just have so many different ways in which a business could thrive there. But we're not seeing that because of these kinds of policies. And Kamala wants to make the entire country in the same vein, the makeover that she and Gavin Newsom have given to California.
They absolutely do. And when you think about the economy, and we've seen this over the last couple of days really significantly with what's been happening in the stock market, what's been happening globally. But here in California, we see it all first and we see it all worst. We had over 20,000 small businesses close during the pandemic, never to reopen again. But you look at her energy policies, right? And when we see the cost of energy, that affects everything. The fuel you put into your car and the fuel that is put into, moving goods from one place to another, this is critical. California is so rich in natural resources. We should be leading the country when it comes to energy. But they have these radical, regressive policies that have been championed by people like Kamala Harris, like Gavin Newsom. And, whether it's shutting down all new cars with fossil fuels by 2035, the gas taxes that they put on every gallon of gas here, the lack of permits that they have put on our energy companies here in California. Chevron has been a company that's been based in California for 145 years. This past weekend, they made the decision to move their base of operations to Texas. And why are they doing that? Because that's an energy-friendly state. We pay the highest gas prices in the nation. We have the natural resources. We have every ability to offer the cleanest type of energy. And instead, we're buying it from our enemies, and it's much dirtier. And so for this progressive, I call them the regressive left, to continue down this journey of climate, they really need to figure out how they're going to get there. Because right now, the consumption is not going down. We're just empowering our enemies, and we are making sure that we are putting out a dirtier product.
And all in a country where we innovate. If there's a problem, when we leave it to the private sector, we don't just see innovation. We see new things created that oftentimes go out of our country, and other countries pay for that technology. They pay to access those manufactured goods and services, and they improve their lives. We actually are a driver for that. I'm really surprised that we can't seem to get this right in a place like California. And the single party rule there, I know the GOP does very well there. You actually send people to Congress. You make a difference in the congressional numbers. It's actually consequential what you're able to do in a state that really the Democrats have kind of overrun. But people who live in California have experienced a lessening of their quality of life because of that same kind of, it feels like a single party rule there. Like there's no one that can beat Gavin Newsom, which is unfair because he's just no good.
California is absolutely what could be, and everybody looks at it that way, right? We've got the Silicon Valley, like the absolute most brilliant minds. And where is Elon Musk taking SpaceX? He's taking it out of the state. These are the places where the technology and the brilliance of, Americans, coming and understanding and knowing and being able to create happens. And we have just done an absolutely terrible job of making it a place where you can thrive and be successful and raise your family. We've got the beautiful Central Valley that feeds the entire world. We've got the beaches and the mountains. And California Democrats' one-party rule has changed things so much here in California that we've lost a congressional seat for the first time in our state's history. More people left our state in the last 10 years than came in. Where are the places that are gaining those states? Places like Texas, places like Florida. We understand that this is a problem, and we're starting to see that change. And, since October of last year, we've actually been seeing this tick in registration. Republicans have actually picked up 160,000 registrations since October of last year.
Whoa.
In that same time period, Stacey, not only did we pick up 160,000, Democrats have lost 106,000. Decline to states or no party preference have lost 115,000. So we're really seeing our message is working. People are understanding what the Democrat Party and their one-party regressive rule has done here in California has not allowed them to live their best lives. They know that Californians have the opportunity to really excel, to have that full American dream. And right now, they're not seeing that full potential because the government's holding them back.
Well, the best thing to do is to continue that registration drive, continue that shift. Sometimes hard times bring smart decisions, right? It takes people actually experiencing the difficulties of being ruled by Democrats. I can't imagine what it must be like to be someone who is planning on voting for Biden or, I'm sorry, Harris and now, her running mate. How someone could be voting for the two of them after the 3 years of economic carnage we've seen, how they would think that's a good idea. But I know there are millions of people out there. Now, I wanted to get your take, and I know, obviously California politics, it's impacted greatly by these decisions that Kamala's making now that she's gone from the vice president to running for the presidency. But she chose a very, very far left governor in Minnesota, Governor Walz, to be her running mate today. Have you seen any response there in California? What's the lay of the land there as they see this choice that she's made?
Well, I think people are a little bit in shock. Instead of going down a path which many thought she was going to, getting a charismatic and maybe even a little bit less radical individual as her running mate. There are plenty of Democrats that she could have chosen. Instead, she decided to double down on this radical, regressive set of policies that she has. And, this is an individual who, too, has championed the defund the police movement, right? Kamala Harris cheered on the mayor of L.A. when he talked about slashing $150 million from the police budget in Los Angeles. She talked about reimagining ICE when it came to the border situation. She championed sanctuary cities and sanctuary states in her time here as DA and Attorney General and U.S. Senator. So she went and doubled down on these radical policies. And it's just really interesting to watch. And I think it surprised a lot of us. On the Republican side, we're confident that we are going to be able to show the contrast. We have seen the last 3.5 years of the Harris-Biden administration. And what the Harris-Walz administration would be is even worse than that. We also know what a Trump administration looked like because we all lived through it. We remember when gas prices were the lowest that they had been. We remember when the employment of every sector was thriving and our economy was doing so well. We remember when we were the strength amongst all countries and people looked to the United States with respect on the international stage. So I think we're very confident that we are going to be able to show a strong contrast between President Trump and Senator Vance and what Vice President Harris and Governor Walz would be serving up in a 4-year administration.
Yeah, and I think you're highlighting the strong points, the points that have to be hammered home now, that there's no more question. There are no more unknowns. We know it's Harris, we know it's Walz, we know the radical nature of both of their candidacies, their history of radicalism in serving their constituents at every level, and their adherence to those policies. They're not moderating, they're not tacking to the middle. This isn't an exercise in saying, okay, on some of these policies, we might have gotten a little away from our core competency, our core issue of serving the American people. No, they're doubling down. They're redoubling their efforts. They're leaning into the progressivism. And so Americans have a clear choice between the two ideologies. The two worldviews are so stark and so different. This isn't a fence sitter's position any longer. You're running to the left or you're sitting with America in an America First position. Those are the two options this November.
Absolutely. And we're going to make sure that Americans are fully aware of what Kamala Harris has done here in California and how she wants to California the rest of the nation. No one is looking at us saying that's what we should be doing.
Well, I know what I should be doing, which is thanking my lucky stars that I had you on my calendar tonight, Jessica Milan Patterson, chairwoman of the California.
It's always great to be with you.
I love it. California Republican Party is cagop.org, my friends. You can find out everything you need to know about Jessica and her work there. Thank you so much, friend. Have a great night.
Thanks for having me. Talk soon.
All right. Talk soon.